At 9 o'clock sharp, the CEO's phone rang. No one in that conference room expected the voice on the other end to ask, in a level and almost clinical tone, "Who fired your credentialed inspector yesterday?" The words hit harder than any alarm, and though I was not there to see his reaction, I knew exactly when his silence began because it was the moment the fuse reached the detonator. The call takes us back to the afternoon before, when Bryce Nolan dragged me into a company-wide Zoom meeting. 80-plus faces blinked awake on my screen as if they had been summoned to witness something. Bryce cleared his throat, savoring the attention, and leaned in so close to his webcam that every syllable felt like an accusation. "Marin Keller," he said, stretching my name like it had already been stamped onto a disciplinary notice. "We reviewed your travel records. Louisville. A $750 trip." He made the number sound scandalous, as if I had booked a spa retreat instead of inspecting a fabrication site with a documented safety risk. He did not let me speak. "You know what this is." Bryce's smirk tightened. "Expense fraud. Before you leave this meeting, I want to hear you apologize to me directly." Someone's microphone picked up a muffled gasp. Someone else whispered, "Is he serious?" I kept my hands still in my lap. I said nothing. I watched Bryce waiting for the performance he thought I would give tears. Panic, a stumble through excuses. When I finally unmuted, all I said was, "I hope you verify that documentation before 9 in the morning." Then I clicked out of the call. No speech, no apology, no explanation. Within 5 minutes, I sent one email with one receipt attached. And now, the next morning, at exactly 9 o'clock, a federal auditor was on the line asking the CEO why their company had terminated the only inspector authorized to submit a mandatory compliance report. The room around him fell silent, and everything that had been set in motion yesterday finally began to move. I have spent most of my 39 years learning how to move quietly. In compliance work, silence is not a weakness. It is a requirement. People do not want to hear from the woman who shows up with a clipboard and federal forms. They only want to know everything is safe, legal, and ready to ship. Cincinnati was my home base, though I was rarely there. Most weeks I was on a pre-dawn flight along the Ohio River corridor, heading to small manufacturing plants tucked behind cornfields or river bends. I was the one walking into tornado-damaged workshops, saying, "Show me the structural report." The one pointing at fire suppression panels and asking, "Who signed off on the last test?" The one standing in front of rusted chemical barrels. Telling plant managers, "These storage logs are incomplete. Fix them now." They usually sighed. Some argued. A few tried to flirt their way out of it, but most just muttered, "Fine, Keller, we'll update it." My work kept shipment routes alive. It was invisible, necessary, and thankless. Back in Cincinnati, my father waited in our small Price Hill house. He never complained when I called to say I would miss another dinner or when I whispered, "I'll be home late again." After my mother died, it was just him and me. He pretended he did not worry, but I saw it each time he asked, "Where did they send you this week, Louisville?" I told him before that trip. He just nodded, trying not to show the tension in his jaw. I carried that weight everywhere I went. Duty to my father, duty to the job, duty to the people relying on shipments they would never see me approve. I was steady. I was consistent. And because of that, people like Bryce assumed I would always bend, always absorb the hit, always do the work without ever saying a word. They never bothered to look closely enough to see what happened when I finally stopped bending. The trip Bryce labeled fraud started with a phone call from our federal liaison, Trevor Lindholm. His voice was tight, the way it always sounded when a plant's paperwork triggered a red alert. "Marin, Louisville just flagged again," he said. "Outdated pressure testing equipment, 2 prior citations. I need you on site within hours." I did not argue. "Send the authorization." I told him, "It's already in your inbox." He replied, "Be careful down there." By noon, I was at the fabrication site, clipboard under my arm, hair tied back, trying to ignore the plant manager insisting everything was fine. I pointed at a pressure rig with a cracked gauge. This should have been pulled from service months ago. He looked away. We were going to replace it next quarter. You will replace it now, I said. Trevor stepped beside me, lowering his voice. Good catch. If this had gone unnoticed, they would have shut the entire line down. He signed the inspection document in front of me. Thank you. Marin, I mean that. The trip cost $750, not $7,000, not $75,000. $750, travel. 1 night in a modest hotel, meals logged down to the penny. But when Bryce reviewed my expense file, he did not see the danger we had stopped, the equipment we saved, or the fine we prevented. He saw an opportunity. 3 days before the Zoom meeting, he stopped me in the hallway outside the break room. Marin, he said, arms crossed. I'm tightening spending across all departments. Some people have gotten comfortable abusing the system. I followed protocol. I told him. The trip was federally approved. He shrugged like that detail bored him. We both know inspectors exaggerate what's necessary. $750 for 1 night? Someone has to answer for that. I held his stare. Check the authorization. Check the inspection file. He smiled the way people smile when they think they've already won. I will. He never bothered to read what was in front of him. After Bryce ended that Zoom call with his little victory smirk, I sat at my kitchen table and opened the inspection folder from Louisville. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I expected shaking, or anger, or something explosive. Instead, there was only clarity. The receipt they called fraud sat on top of the stack. $750. A hotel charge, 2 meals, a rideshare logged with a timestamp that matched my federal form. Under it, clipped neatly, was Trevor Lindholm's signature on the inspection report. I whispered it out loud. Signed, authorized, filed on site. My voice sounded strangely calm. Next was the routing confirmation, the digital trail showing that the inspection had been checked, verified, and prepared for upload into the federal oversight portal. All that was left was the final HR clearance for my travel record, something Bryce's department had frozen the moment he flagged the expense. I called HR once, more out of habit than hope. A woman answered, hesitant. Marin Bryce told us to hold all your files until further review. So the travel clearance isn't closed out. I said, no, I'm sorry. I thanked her and hung up. The realization settled in clean and sharp if my travel remained unapproved. The portal would keep every related attestation flag red. Louisville was 1. Evansville and Monroe County were 2 more. 3 sites in total. Red meant no shipments leaving those facilities. Red meant no clearance codes for outbound freight. Red meant logistics operations grinding to a stop. I flipped back to Trevor's signature. You did everything right, I murmured. And so did I. For years, I had jumped in to fix every bottleneck, every oversight, every missing form someone forgot to sign. It was instinct patch the hole before the whole thing sank. But now, there was nothing for me to fix. This time, the hole was theirs, and the thread holding the system together was already slipping out of their hands. I opened a new email and stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Not because I was unsure of what to write, but because it felt strange to finally speak without softening anything for someone else's comfort. I typed slowly, choosing every word with the same precision I used when logging safety inspections. Attached is the documentation for the Louisville audit conducted last week. Included the signed federal inspection report, routing confirmation, and itemized travel expenses. No anger, no justifications. No apology. I added the line that mattered. Please verify before concluding your termination process. Then I attached to the receipt the same $750 record Bryce had waved like a smoking gun, the liaison's signature, and the routing file that proved the inspection was completed under federal authorization. I entered the recipient's HR, legal, the CEO's assistant, and, last, Bryce Nolan. Before hitting send, I read the message again. It was plain, factual, the opposite of the spectacle he had created on Zoom. My father stepped into the kitchen, tying his jacket. "Are you ready? Kiddo doctor doesn't like when we're late." "Just finishing something," I told him. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Whatever happened at work today, don't let it swallow you." I managed a small smile. "It won't." He nodded, giving me the space he always did. He never asked for details unless I offered them. I clicked send, no hesitation, no tremor in my hand. The email left my outbox with a soft whoosh, quieter than the sound of a pressure valve releasing, but with far more weight behind it. I closed my laptop and grabbed my keys. "Let's go," I told my father. As we drove toward his appointment, he talked about the neighbors, the doctor's new assistant, the chilly weather creeping in. I listened, letting his voice smooth the raw edges of the day. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to leave the company's problems behind me. By morning, the system would demand an answer. I wasn't in the building to see it, but I heard the chaos later in pieces, snippets of panicked voices, hurried footsteps, phones buzzing nonstop. The kind of morning where everyone walks faster without knowing where they are going. At 7:40, operations noticed the first red flag on the shipment dashboard. "Why is Monroe County locked?" someone asked. Another voice answered. "Evansville just froze too." Then a third, "Louisville is red. Everything is red. What is happening?" By 8:15, outbound trucks were lined up at the gates with drivers calling dispatch. "We can't get clearance codes," one driver said. "We scanned everything twice." Another insisted. "System still says non-compliant origin." Legal received the alert minutes later. 3 missing inspection uploads, all tied to my credential ID. A junior attorney ran down the hallway, waving the notice. "These are mandatory filings. Who blocked the submission? Who approved the termination?" No one had an answer. Inside the executive conference room, the CEO demanded, "Who was the inspector on these sites?" "Marin Keller," someone said quietly. "And who terminated her Bryce Nolan yesterday afternoon?" The CEO closed his eyes for a moment, his jaw clenching. "Get me the Zoom recording." IT tried first. "Sir," the technician said, voice shaking, "we cannot delete it. The archive system auto-sent a copy to legal last night. It is already logged under mandatory review. Then retrieve it," the CEO ordered. "Now." At 8:59, the room went silent as his phone began to ring. He answered, trying to steady his voice. "This is Chief Executive Officer Dalton." The reply came smooth and cold. "This is Audrey Cross from the Federal Compliance Office. We are reviewing your flagged sites and noticed your credentialed inspector, Ms. Marin Keller, was removed from access during an active audit window. I need immediate clarification." Everyone in that room stopped breathing. "Send us the recording," Audrey said. "We will wait." And with that, the walls finally began to close in around them. They told me later that no one wanted to be the one to press play. The boardroom was crowded. Legal, HR, operations, the CEO, and Bryce himself, shrinking into the leather chair like he wished he could disappear. "Start it," the CEO said. The recording flickered onto the screen. Bryce's face filled the frame, lit by the glow of his monitor. His voice came sharp and rehearsed. "Marin Keller, we reviewed your travel records. Louisville. $750. Expense fraud." He leaned closer to the camera. "I want to hear you apologize before you leave this call." Several people in the boardroom shifted in their seats. Someone whispered, "He really said that on a company-wide meeting." Then the recording showed me still, steady, unmoving. I heard my own voice. "I hope you verify that documentation before 9 in the morning." The moment I clicked out, the room on the recording fell silent. The real boardroom wasn't any quieter. "Pause it," the CEO ordered. He pointed to the timestamp in the corner of the screen. "Look at that." A legal associate checked a printed binder. That is the exact window of the Louisville audit. The federal record shows Ms. Keller was scheduled on site from 9 to 12. The CEO turned his head toward Bryce. You fired her during an active inspection. Bryce swallowed. HR approved the action. HR's director snapped back. No. You submitted the termination request. You flagged the expense. You pushed it through. Do not put this on us. One of the attorneys clicked through a separate file. There is more. Region 6 only has one credentialed inspector cleared to upload federal compliance documentation. She tapped the screen. Her operations lead spoke next, voice tight. We cannot clear a single attestation flag without her badge ID. Silence spread again, thick, heavy, undeniable. The CEO rubbed his face. We lost 3 regional shipping lanes because you wanted to look tough on expenses. Bryce had no answer. A quiet voice from legal finally broke the tension. There is something else we need to review. An email Ms. Keller sent 6 months ago. And with that, the unraveling had only just begun. The boardroom lights dimmed again when a senior compliance officer, George Renner, stepped forward with a printed thread in his hand. His voice was flat, almost tired. This came from my archive. Dated 6 months ago. He slid the pages across the table. The CEO picked them up, scanning the header first, then the recipients, then the CC line. Bryce's name sat there in bold type. George explained, Marin sent this after our quarterly review. She outlined the risks of consolidating all federal upload credentials under one inspector. She also listed conditions that must never be violated. The CEO read aloud, word by word. Do not interrupt travel approvals during an active audit cycle. Another line. Do not terminate credentialed inspectors without confirming the inspection window. And then a third. Federal systems cannot accept retroactive uploads from non-credentialed employees. Bryce shifted, turning pale. I get a lot of emails. I can't read every you were in the CC field. George cut in. You acknowledged receipt. HR added sharply. We flagged this thread during the policy update meeting. You were present. Legal leaned forward. The final line is the most critical. The CEO reread it slowly, the color in his face draining with every syllable. If any of these conditions are violated, all shipments for Region 6 will freeze. A suffocating silence filled the room. Operations broke it first. We froze 3 entire lanes this morning. Legal added, clients are already requesting explanations. The CEO set the papers down. So this wasn't a misunderstanding. She warned us. Clearly. Bryce gripped the arms of his chair. I thought she was exaggerating. Compliance overreacts all the time. George shook his head. Not her. No one argued. There was nothing left to argue. I heard about the board's decision the way people hear about weather rolling in piece by piece, through short messages and hushed voices. I was sitting in the lobby of a firm in Columbus, waiting for my second interview, when my former co-worker, Jenna, called. They're in a closed session, she whispered. The CEO is furious. Legal laid everything out. It's bad. Marin, I kept my voice steady. For who? For Bryce. She breathed. They're terminating him for negligence and misconduct. And HR leadership is getting audited. Operations lost an entire morning of shipments. The CEO already issued a non-compliance statement to clients. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness not for Bryce, but for the years I had spent holding together a system that never once held me back. A receptionist stepped into the lobby. Ms. Keller. They're ready for you whenever you are. One moment. I told her, then returned to Jenna. Thank you for letting me know. He's saying it's all a misunderstanding. She added, but no one is listening. They brought up your record, your audits, and that email from 6 months ago. She paused. People finally see what you were carrying. I exhaled softly. They needed to see the consequences. Are you coming back? Jenna asked. I smiled, not bitterly but with something close to calm. No, not this time. When I ended the call, The hallway felt unusually quiet. The firm I was meeting with, Riverstone Compliance Solutions, had already reviewed my credentials and requested my availability before I even walked through their door. They understood the value of a clean audit chain. They understood the weight of my signature. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and followed the receptionist toward the conference room. For the first time in years, I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet in a direction I chose. Riverstone's conference room felt different from any place I had worked before. No one looked rushed. No one barked orders across the table. The hiring manager, a composed woman named Dana Whitmore, reviewed my file with a kind of respect that caught me off guard. "Your audit history is exceptional," she said. "Your federal credential level is rare. We would like to bring you on as senior compliance specialist. Full autonomy, clear boundaries, and support staff so you are not carrying inspections alone." She slid the offer across the table. The salary was higher than anything Mid-River had ever hinted at. The benefits were real, not empty promises, and every word in the document suggested they understood exactly how much responsibility came with my signature. "When can you start?" Donna asked. I nodded. "I can accept today." Her smile was warm, not triumphant. "Welcome. Marin, we're lucky to have you." When I got home that evening, I opened my laptop and drafted one final message to Mid-River. No anger, no victory lap. Just professionalism, something they had never extended to me. "I am confirming completion of all assigned inspections prior to my termination. Please see attached summary of each site, including dates, federal liaison signatures, and routing confirmations. For any future compliance matters related to Region 6, forward all inquiries to my new office at Riverstone Compliance Solutions." I included nothing more. Before shutting the laptop, I saw a forwarded message from Jenna. The investigation had concluded. Bryce was barred from leadership roles indefinitely. HR leadership was being restructured. Operations remained under federal observation until the attestation flags could be cleared by a reinstated credential holder. I leaned back, letting the quiet settle around me. I never wanted revenge. I wanted recognition of the truth I had been carrying for years. And as I stood to make dinner for my father, the final thought came naturally, without bitterness, without heat, just clarity. In the end, they did not fall because of me. They fell because they never read the one receipt that could have saved them.